In episode 12 of Tencent's three-body problem, Wang Miao gets to meet two of the greatest philosophers in Chinese history, Mozi and Confucius. Now, this scene depicts them in some ways accurately and in some ways unfairly, and I'm going to say why that is now. And here we see him, Mozi, for the first time. Actually, rather similar to the way he's depicted in art throughout the ages. His hair back in a knot. So here's Mozi introducing to Wang Miao the history of the civilizations that rose and fell.
那个是什么？
那是孔子。
孔子。
他认为一切合乎理，宇宙万物都不例外。于是他就制造出一道宇宙的礼法系统。
结果可想而知。
Here we have Confucius depicted as someone prioritizing order and propriety and being frozen to death because of not being flexible. Now, this seems to implicitly suggest that he was stuck in his ways and could not adapt. This is rather unfair. The real historical Confucius was in fact a reformer and an articulator and a proposer of new moral stances.
君上，卑臣祈求在我鲁国彻底废止以活人陪葬的恶俗。
孔丘，你怎么会有这样的想法呢？
He does talk about propriety, Li, proper behavior. His behaviors are not fixed, and he has a moral compass that is separate from simply tradition.
降临，那个冷啊！ 孔子就那么站着，冻成了冰柱，一直站到了现在。
那就什么都没有。
Again, the suggestion here is that Confucius had proposed a system of propriety and rights for the universe, as he says there, Mozi.
他认为一切合乎理，宇宙万物都不例外。于是。
This is unfair because Confucius did not consider himself to be a scientist. His purview was really more about morality and the questions of how it is to be good, rather than how things happen. He was so overall the depiction in some ways true and in some ways not accurate here. We have the idea of Confucius believing that tradition is important and rights, yes, that is true, but he would have not applied them in a scientific manner and believed that they would predict the sun's rotations as it's been suggested here. So what about Mozi himself then?
太阳的运行，我不像那些巫师、法学家和道学家们，他们动。
So there, yes, that is true. Mozi, in the sayings of Mozi, does look down on other philosophers as impractical, often talking about how unrealistic they are. So the scene does get this correct. Mozi did look at himself as a more practical philosopher. He had whole chapters dedicated to siege defense in the sayings of Mozi.
手能力极差，整日沉浸在自己的玄想中，而我却能。
He would certainly have seen other philosophers as obsessed with mysticism, although I do think they were really answering, as I said before, different questions.
造出实际的东西来。
Yes, he did know how to make practical things, that is true. But As for a model of the world as he seems to have built here, there's less evidence for that. Whilst we do know he was a practical philosopher,
这是漂浮于火海中的一个大空，大的都是这个上的话，
那你又
宇宙之球是由2层构成的。
you can see this really very imaginative solution he has here to the three-body problem. And would he, Mozi, as a philosopher, have wanted to help out? Well, yes, he would have. One of his main philosophical concepts was Jian'ai, that is universal love. That is what he's most known for in Chinese philosophical history. That is this idea of one should feel a kind of compassion and benevolence and kindness towards all. The kindness that one feels towards one's loved ones, and how that ideally should be applied to all. So he would have wanted to help out. So there it is, the interesting scene from episode 12, where Wang Miao meets Mozi and Confucius. Some things accurate, some things not so. But by and large, I enjoyed this representation of Mozi and Confucius.